Worlds will live, worlds will die, and the DC universe will never be the same. I think that quote kind of in many ways encapsulates what's happening right now and the future of DC. Hello, fellow seekers and collectors. Okay, I know I was gone for quite a while, but I got sick, okay? I got sick in October and throughout November too. I was also still pretty under the weather, so I'm sorry that there was a lack of uploads, especially with a bunch of big news, bunch of stuff coming out, but I'm back now, and we're here to talk about a pretty big situation right now going on with DC, and let's just get right into it because things have been changing in many ways. Because, man, this is a huge deal if a lot of this is true. And the reason why I say that is because James Gunn has now recently come out with his tweet about the situation, but we'll get to that later. So to start off with, the biggest bombshell was that Wonder Woman 3 is canceled. Yes, that is right. The next Wonder Woman movie that was supposed to come out is now being scrapped as James Gunn and David Safran have officially made it, well, officially behind the scenes that this report supposedly says. But we have to ultimately keep in mind that they also do say that the DC universe is still in flux. So even though it doesn't fit their vision right now, it could come back later. In fact, it says that sources say that Jenkins recently submitted her treatment co-written with Jeff Johns, and that Gunn and Safran, as well as Warner Brothers Pictures co-chairs and co-CEOs Michael DeLuna and Pamela Abdy, broke the news to the filmmaker, telling her the project as it stood did not fit with the new but still unfolding plans. Jenkins directed and co-wrote the previous two movies starring Gal Gadot, released in 2017 and 2020. No decision has been made about next steps. So with that being said, that clearly shows that right now, if what is being reported on is true as this, but I don't know, I have a much more bigger chance of it being real because it is the Hollywood Reporter. They have gotten big scoops in the past before, and some stuff has been true in the past. So with something like this, I'm a little bit more ready to believe it, but as well, James Gunn did say that some stuff from this report was true. And with this, I don't know. I do wonder if this one is true. I feel like this one out of all of them is the most real because, well, recently we've seen the perception of the Wonder Woman movies shift. Ever since 1984's release, we we pretty much have seen now Gal Gadot, Patty Jenkins, Jeff Johns, and that movie franchise's reputation will go down the tubes because now a lot of people don't think that Gal Gadot is a great actress. A lot of people don't think that maybe Patty Jenkins' direction is right. Many people despise Jeff Johns as not only a writer but as a person as well, with all the controversy of Ray Fisher, as well just many people despising some of his writing, like Doomsday Clock and The Three Jokers. So it's one of those things where it's very clear that from this report, their vision does not fit in this universe. The thing that I do wonder is Gal Gadot still going to be Wonder Woman? Because she did put out a tweet that talked about how she's excited for the next chapter and how she loves playing the character, and she was so honored and was pretty much getting nostalgic over the fact that she got cast, way back when Batman vs Superman came out. So I do wonder, is this her preemptively saying goodbye, or is she now uh, reaffirming or trying to reassure the audience that she's not going anywhere, but there will be a new chapter? Who knows? Maybe the Wonder Woman movies are getting a full scale reboot that will be under a different visionary. Who knows with something like this? Another big thing that also came about was the fact that now Henry Cavill's return as Superman is kind of in limbo now. It's one of those things where we have no idea if Cavill now is coming back, despite him officially saying he is now back. but that was before James Gunn took over as the leader of DC. Now he is the Kevin Feige of the DC universe. So I do wonder, is there plans to bring him back, or will this be a complete erasure of the Snyderverse? Because it seems like in this report, it seems like the route they're going for is completely dropping whatever Snyder did, or that the visions that they want is being contradicted by the old movies. So I do ultimately wonder if we're going to see maybe cast certain people who are maybe more beloved than others be kept, or they're just going to go the nuclear route and just flat out get rid of it, and in favor of a new, well, as Marvel would put it, an all new, all different universe. Because in the Hollywood Reporter article, it says the rest of the DC slate remains in flux, or at least is being kept deep in a pocket of Gunn's own utility belt, but there are several rumors and possible scenarios to consider ahead of next week's meeting. The first, which builds on the shuttering of Jenkins' Wonder Woman 3, is the closing curtain of the Snyderverse and the heroes cast by filmmaker Zack Snyder for his Justice League. This one sees the shutting down of Man of Steel 2 with a returning Henry Cavill and having no more Aquaman fronted by Jason Momoa. These characters are to cameo in The Flash, and that's also another big thing. Is it is also being said that Superman, well, is supposed to appear in the Flash movie, and that Henry Cavill filmed a cameo for the movie. However, even that is being kind of almost in limbo as itself. These characters are to cameo in The Flash, the highly anticipated time travel adventure movie that is due to release June 16th, that's of next year. Cavill shot his part of the cameo in September, but sources say there is a debate inside the studio as to whether or not to keep the cameo, and if its inclusion promises something the studio would have no plans on delivering. A Warner insider cautions that no plans have been finalized and that Flash remains an unlocked picture. So, with that being said, that does make me wonder, are they just going the nuclear route? Are they just wanting to get rid of any ties to the old universe and in favor of a new, brighter, all new, all different universe, as I mentioned earlier? Because that is interesting to me that they filmed a cameo but now are debating on whether or not they should keep it. We already had a similar situation with the Black Adam movie with the, spoiler alert if you still care about it, or if you don't know about it, but Henry Cavill appears in the post credit scene of the movie, and he flat out just made a return. Like, it was meant to pretty much be a huge, like, oh, look at Henry Cavill's finally back. And they even said that apparently he was supposed to be a headless cameo originally, but this was before the new management, and under the new direction, they wanted Henry Cavill to come back. But now that Gunn and Safran are the new guys in charge, there's a good chance that they may end up saying, that's cool and all, but that doesn't fit our vision. Because it's very clear Gunn wants a completely different direction for the DCU. Understandably so. Another big thing from this article, too, was the fact that they also said that apparently Black Adam is unlikely, that this movie may not even get a sequel. Honestly, out of all of them, I feel like this one is probably the one that's probably going to be the most true out of all the reports, because I firmly do believe Warner Brothers is going to consider this franchise unprofitable, because the movie has been officially registered as a box office bomb. Like, no ifs, ands, or buts, Black Adam is being considered a bomb at the box office. As, I mean, even Black Panther 2, that only came out not so recently, made what was essentially its entire box office in just a couple of weeks. And now it's like even close to like 700 million now, the worldwide box office, coming close to 900 and even a billion. Something that Black Adam failed and didn't even come close to doing. So I ultimately believe that this one, out of all of them, is probably the most truthful out of all of them, because I don't see them trying to give them a sequel for a movie that really didn't even make a lot of money. If anything, I think The Rock's Black Adam will just become now officially like background character, or like a side character for other movies. I won't be surprised if his next appearance is going to be like a Shazam movie as the main antagonist, because I firmly believe I kind of feel like maybe they should have just done that to begin with, like establish him first there and then lead to a movie. I get the idea was to establish him as a character first and then make him fight Shazam, but even then that was always up in the air because sometimes they would almost imply that, oh, he's not going to fight Shazam, he's going to fight Superman, which I don't get. I mean, we associate Black Adam more with Shazam, so I don't get that idea, but this one, it feels like this one is going to probably be the most true. Maybe not. Maybe they want to keep The Rock around. Maybe they want to give it a second go, give it a second win. But in the article, it does mention it. Also unlikely is a sequel to Black Adam. Despite the hype surrounding the movie of launching a new corner of DC, a lot of it led by Dwayne Johnson, the movie has only grossed $385 million worldwide, and insiders at the studio say the movie, which cost more than $190 million to produce, two sources peg the actual cost at $230 million, not including marketing, will be lucky to break even. Even considering ancillary revenue, even if the movie does eke out a minimal profit, any follow-ups' inherent rising costs dim the prospect of a sequel. Johnson hoped to carve out his own piece of the DC pie, but multiple sources say his playing up of a returning Cavill and his own involvement with DC may not be endearing him to the new management. Johnson and Cavill are both managed by Danny Garcia, who is also Johnson's producing partner. The perception of Adam turning a profit is not a conflagration now being waged in public, with Johnson tweeting the movie would net over $50 million after a Variety story said the movie would lose over $50 million theatrically. So, yeah, it's very clear that Black Adam is in massive trouble, which is kind of ironic when this was being proposed as the big end all be all for the DCU, that the history of the DCU is going to change, and now the hierarchy of the DC universe is now going to change, and it's very clear that's not going to happen. It's very clear now the only hierarchy that's being changed is not through Black Adam but through James Gunn. But one of the big ones, too, that also came from this article revolves around Jason Momoa. Now, we've all been pretty excited and interested because Momoa, for quite a while now, has been teasing that DC and Warner Brothers have given him his dream project, and that apparently he's excited and completely looking forward to the future of the DC universe, with many people trying to pick and choose as to what are his plans and what exactly is he talking about, because he's been very cryptic about it, can't say anything until like there's an official announcement, and even the idea of saying like, oh, I get to work with the maestro, again, very cryptic wording, and it makes you wonder.
Worst thing in the world. All right, this needs to be documented. What's the date today? The 6th of November. The greatest news, some of the greatest news in my life just happened. I can't say anything about it. Fuck yes! Oh! I can't wait to share with you, but they won't let me share anything. I want you to remember this date, November 6th. Mwah! You know who you are? Mwah! Mwah, maestro. Mwah!
And in this article, it says what potentially could be the future. Momoa, meanwhile, could emerge as a pivotal figure in the new plans, according to several sources. In one scenario, the actor would wrap up his days as underwater hero Arthur Curry with Lost City, due out December 25th, 2023, which would be the final movie release that was made by the previous regime. But it would not spell the end of the actor's involvement with DC, with sources saying the actor would lead another movie or franchise, the character of Lobo, a foul-mouthed, cigar-chomping intergalactic bounty hunter, has been mentioned in connection with Momoa. In fact, this is one of the ones that many people flat out were saying maybe that's what he's confirming. Whether or not Momoa does play everybody's favorite pastiche, Lobo emerging as a rising character early on in the conversation may point to the kind of characters the Gunn and Safran team may be focusing on. The character is an outsider, an anti-hero, and is keeping in line with Gunn's specialty of taking the offbeat and quirky and flipping it into crowd-pleasing fare. that's also the big thing, is that it's very clear he wants more of these anti-hero type characters, because already he's come in with Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad, which are full on villain or anti-hero type characters. So it's very clear he likes that kind of stuff, but there's also implications that he wants a more maybe classical version, classic version of the DC universe. The reason I say this is because while this report has been going wild, James Gunn ultimately tweeted out something that is going to be very interesting and kind of is contradicts what the report says. And again, maybe some of this is true, maybe all of it's true, maybe none of it's true, but it is interesting, some of his comments. So James Gunn tweeted, "So, as for the story yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter, some of it is true, some of it is half true, some of it is not true, and some of it we haven't decided yet whether it's true or not. Although this first month at DC has been fruitful, building the next 10 years of story takes time, and we're still just beginning. Peter and I chose to helm DC Studios knowing we were coming into a fractious environment, both in the stories being told and in the audience itself, and there would be an unavoidable transitional period as we moved into telling a cohesive story across film, TV, animation, and gaming." That is a very I want to focus on that a little bit. Film, TV, animation, and gaming. Now, I know he's overseeing everything, but it is interesting. Are we maybe going to see like video games maybe that tell a story in the DC universe, like in his version? Because I know like we've got plenty of DC games on the way that are not connected to any of the movies, that will be their own thing, and we'll probably get more of those. But it is interesting how he mentions gaming. I do wonder, does that just overall mean like, oh, we want a cohesive vision across everything, but even if they're not connected? Or is he trying to imply that some video games will actually tie into the DC universe, which would be very interesting, because it's one of those things where not everybody plays video games, kind of deal. I'm not trying to say anything about like bad about video games. I'm just saying that while the general public does play a lot more video games than they did before, there's still a lot of people that don't play games or can't, do that kind of hobby. So I do wonder how that's gonna go, or if they're gonna go for the idea of like a DC universe where the next movie has a character that appears in a video game first. That would be very interesting. But in the end, the drawbacks of that transitional period were dwarfed by the creative possibilities and the opportunity to build upon what has worked in DC so far and help rectify what has not. We know we are not going to make every single person happy every step of the way, but we can promise everything we do is done in the service of the story and in the service of the DC characters we know you cherish and we have cherished our whole lives. And then, very interesting, the last tweet. "As for more answers about the future of the DCU, I sadly will have to ask you to wait. We are giving these characters and the stories the time and attention they deserve, and we ourselves still have a lot more questions to ask and answer." Now, the reason I say this is interesting is because of the picture that he put. Now, if you are familiar right now, James Gunn for a while has been posting about many DC projects and has been many DC images, such as Mr. Terrific. He's been implying the idea of Kingdom Come, but the thing that makes this image interesting is because not only is it fantastic Alex Ross work, but what makes me very interested is the fact that this is what is known as the classic lineup of the Justice League or the DC universe. These are what many people would still consider the DC universe because, as we all know, the original DC universe, predominantly the Snyderverse and the old regime, as they're calling it in the report, they were clearly going off the new 52. Because you look at the Justice League team, it was the new 52 lineup. But this lineup is more classic because, well, there's no Cyborg in this one. And, you have Martian Manhunter being there. You have what looks to be Hawkman and Hawkgirl. Shazam and Black Canary and Green Arrow. That is like classic lineup. And then you have Green Lantern too, and I think I even see in the photo what looks to be the Atom. So that's very fascinating to me. If he purposely chose this photo as like maybe as like a little tease as to what we can expect of what the universe is going to look like, something that is not the new 52, but something maybe more like the classics that we grew up with, or maybe even something like the 2000s, because a lot of us do think of the 2000s as kind of a classic era because that was the era in which we had Justice League the animated series. That was very beloved, and a lot of people of my generation grew up with. So it's one of those things where I do wonder, is this indicative of the future? And it is interesting because, like I said, it's still in flux and we don't know everything because, again, James Gunn and Safran clearly are working hard to make sure that they have a cohesive storyline going on. uh, James Gunn probably has picked up quite a bit of advice or tips probably from Kevin Feige over at the MCU and trying to bring some of that over, but bringing his own vision for it. Because James Gunn is clearly the creative visionary, while Safran is the business guy. They've flat out said that's the dynamic. Safran is the business dude who handles all the finances, while Gunn is the man who has to say, like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. This is the big vision for everything. So I am so fascinated as to what's going to happen because this is pretty much looking to be almost a gigantic reboot. It almost seems like that's where we're going. A gigantic reboot and a retelling of a new DC universe because unfortunately the old one just didn't work. It wasn't doing as well, and a lot of fans were also not very happy with it. So I think we do need a full scale, hit the reset button because I just don't know how much they can pile on to the already shaky foundation. Now, I don't think they should get rid of all the actors. I think they should keep quite a few of them. Like I said, I think Henry Cavill should definitely be kept around. He's great as Superman. He's just been given poor material. I firmly believe he could be fantastic if given the right director and the right writer and the right Superman project. I think he could be fantastic. I think he could do spectacular because he's usually the highlight in, those movies. So I ultimately do wonder what's going to happen with DC because we're looking at a completely new avenue. We're so used to now it just being Marvel. Now it's like this is DC's turn now to try to impress everybody. And I hope it goes well for them because I don't just want Marvel. I want DC too. I like both companies. I want good Batman movies. I want good Superman movies. I want a Wonder Woman movie. I want a Green Arrow franchise. I want to see Green Lantern. I want to see these characters along with characters like Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, and the Avengers. I want to see both of them going on at the same time. I don't want just one company dominating. I want both of them. So I'm really hoping that this new vision is going to go in the right direction because it seems like we're going in the right direction with what's been released this year or even last year because we had Peacemaker, The Suicide Squad, The Batman. All those were great and I think could be a step in the right direction to what's could come in the future for DC as a company, even if it's not interconnected, still just good projects in general. We got the Joker sequel that's coming out that is going to be very fascinating to see, and I also still hope is in production because it sounds very, very fascinating. A full-on musical with Lady Gaga as Harley Quinn potentially, and then Joaquin Phoenix coming back. I mean, who's a pretty good singer. If you've seen Walk the Line, you know Joaquin Phoenix. He's got some vocal prowess. So I'm very fascinated to see what's going to happen because now there's so many projects that either are going to happen or are not going to happen. Well, the DC universe, it's changing. It is really going in a completely different direction and it may be brighter days at the end or maybe it's just going to be more of the same. I don't know. I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and share. It really helps in the algorithm. I'm so sorry that I was gone. I really do apologize, but I'm back now, and I can't wait to see more of you guys and a lot of the updates. There's been a lot of stuff that has happened since I've been gone, from DC, Star Wars, Marvel, Doctor Who, especially Doctor Who. There's been a lot of stuff coming up, so I'm very interested to see how they all develop, and I can't wait to see you guys again.